Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV's YouTube channel. I'm Vishnu. I'm going to run you through some of the big stories we are tracking today. Well, a day after all of the protests at the Jamia Millia Islamia University here in Delhi, the protests themselves have now spread to many other cities. You've got protests both at the level of students and at the level of political leaders stretching all the way from Kerala to Bengal. You've got protests in Mumbai among students. In Hyderabad, you've got protests which are taking place in Delhi certainly and in other areas as well, in Lucknow. Among other areas. So just in the last little while, what we have seen is actually this story we are tracking very closely on ndtv.com. Priyanka Gandhi leading protests at India Gate against the crackdown on students, and she's spoken to us as well, where we're trying to get a couple of reactions from her. But as many as 300 party workers and some of them leaders as well with Priyanka Gandhi. She says it's a silent protest which is taking place where the Congress party, and remember Rahul Gandhi out of the country at this stage, where the Congress party is registering its protest on what they say is excessive violence against students which took place. Just in terms of a backgrounder for our viewers, yesterday there was a great deal of violence across several parts of South Delhi, the New Friends Colony area, parts of Mathura Road, the Jamia Nagar area as well, where students opposed to the Citizenship Amendment Act came out in protest. But what happened afterwards and who was really responsible for this violence is something we don't know, because there were buses which were burnt, there were 200 odd two-wheelers which were damaged as well. 10 cars which were damaged, 4 DTC buses, not 2 DTC buses, 4 Delhi Transport Corporation buses which were damaged. A couple of them were completely destroyed. These are police numbers which have taken place, but there have been 39 injuries as far as the students are concerned, 30 as far as the police are concerned. One of the policemen, one of the policemen in fact, in the ICU as well. So the situation went out of control, and what we saw in the evening was the situation deteriorating further, with the police, without the permission of the proctor or anybody else, entering Jamia Millia University. Tear gas shells were fired. Students say they were assaulted. They were brought out of the university with their hands over their heads late in the evening. And then the protests themselves shifted to outside the Delhi police headquarters, where students of other universities, for example, Jawaharlal Nehru University, some of their students joined in on the protests. And it was only at about 3:30 in the early hours of the morning that the students from the Jamia Millia Islamia were released. Now, politically, we've seen leaders like Mamata Banerjee taking up their opposition to the Citizenship Amendment Act very, very closely today. In fact, she'd said this a couple of days back, but today in West Bengal, she said that passage of or implementation of the Citizenship Amendment Act or the National Register of Citizens would take place in her state, Bengal, over her dead body. We've seen the LDF and the UDF in Kerala, historically the most bitter rivals, coming together on the issue of their opposition to the Citizenship Amendment Act as well. And then we've seen other chief ministers and other political leaders in the opposition saying that what's happening now in this country is something that's completely unacceptable. They call it communal. They say it's an effort to segregate members of the Muslim community or the Muslim community itself in India from people of other faiths. Again, jumping back to the situation at Jamia Millia Islamia, because, you know, what we are talking about today needs to be contextualized in all of that. There was a press briefing by the Vice Chancellor of Jamia, who says that 200 of her students were injured, the police entered without permission, and that the psyche of students was affected as well. Now, the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal says that he's deeply concerned about the situation. In his story, he sought an appointment with Amit Shah, the Home Minister, but Mr. Shah himself is in Jharkhand. He's campaigning over there, and in a big address today, he did not speak about the violence across the state, choosing instead to speak, among other things, on the impending construction of a temple in Ayodhya after the Ayodhya verdict. So that gives you a broad sense of what's happening on this very contentious issue. One more point, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has reportedly said that she is wary of jihadists, Maoists and separatists getting into student protests. It's interesting who she would suggest could be involved in these, and whether that in itself is not a deeply political remark made by the Finance Minister of this country, because there are concerns that there are elements getting into these protests who are misguiding these students, instigating them and getting them involved in violence. We've seen this in Delhi during the Nirbhaya protests as well, when peaceful protests suddenly become violent. So who are these elements, or is it all, or was it all, between the students on the one side and the police on the other? So unanswered questions at this stage. It's fair to say that these protests will continue for a period of time.